New tonight, the community coming together for a vigil to honor the latest person found dead in a Sherwood neighborhood where police say it's uncommon to see crimes like this.
Hey guys, my name's Brooke and I enjoy researching strange occurrences, true crime, conspiracy theories, etc. and sharing my findings with like-minded and curious individuals. If you feel that you fit that description, please consider hitting the subscribe button down below. Without further ado, let's jump right into today's case. Brayla Stone was a 17-year-old from northern Little Rock, Arkansas in the suburb of Sherwood. Those close to her knew her as a very outgoing, fun-loving teenager who had dreams of becoming famous one day. She was active on social media, especially on Instagram Live, where she entertained an audience with her great sense of humor. Despite receiving backlash from some members of her community due to being transgender, this didn't stop Brayla from being her authentic self. She loved displaying her femininity, both online and in real life. She was rightfully proud of who she was, regardless of what anyone else thought. She didn't hesitate to stand up to anyone who spoke about or acted negatively towards her due to her lifestyle. In 2020, Brayla began an intimate relationship with another teen named Trevone Miller. Trevone was 18 years old at the time, working at a local Arby's restaurant. From an early age, Trevone became involved with the wrong crowd, which placed him amid a murder investigation at only 14 years old. In April of 2016, Trevone accompanied two older teen boys in a plot to rob 17-year-old Brian Thompson, who was a small-time marijuana dealer. After luring Brian to the parking lot of a local recreation center with the promise of purchasing from him, the group of three entered his car. Trevone had a broken BB gun in his pocket at the time, but his eldest friend brought an actual pistol to the meeting. While Brian was weighing out the marijuana, the eldest teen abruptly exited the passenger seat of the vehicle, shot Brian in the throat, and took $15 from him before the group of three fled from the scene. I don't know if Trevone and his friends thought that Brian was just raking in the dough from his little side marijuana gig and just so happened to be carrying around a wad of cash on him, but killing somebody over $15 is literally so wild. It was less than 24 hours later that the trio was arrested after being caught on CCTV footage near the scene of the crime. Trevone Miller was ultimately charged with aggravated robbery in juvenile court. He was originally facing a capital murder charge as well, but it was dropped after Trevone agreed to testify against his co-defendants. Trevone was never called to testify because his friends admitted to their guilt, but nonetheless, he was prepared to snitch in court. Text messages between the trio actually revealed that Trevone was the mastermind behind this robbery plot, despite being the youngest member of the group, and he had originally wanted the ordeal to take place in an old abandoned house that they used to hang out in. While Trevone's only repercussion was a brief stint in juvie, his two older friends were charged and sentenced as adults and are still incarcerated to this day. In 2019, Trevone was arrested again on charges of robbery and second-degree criminal impersonation after posing as a Walmart security guard and attempting to rob two customers in the parking lot. A few months later, he was arrested yet again on another weapons-related charge. Unfortunately, these chances of redemption did not lead Trevone down a better path and instead led to yet another young life lost far too soon. By 2020, Trevone began a sexual relationship with Brayla Stone. He had never intended for this relationship to be public knowledge because, unlike her, he was not as comfortable or open with certain aspects of himself. He knew the harassment that Brayla endured due to her gender identity, and he feared the possible social repercussions of being involved with her sexually. Brayla was understanding of this. She knew that not everyone had the wherewithal to be as unapologetically open to the public as she was. While she did keep some of her closest friends in the loop, she generally agreed to keep things under wrap. That was until Trevone began taking advantage of Brayla's empathy. On June 24th, Brayla discovered that Trevone was involved in another relationship with a 19-year-old woman. This, of course, upset Brayla, who threatened to reveal her intimate relationship with Trevone to the public. Trevone responded by inviting Brayla over to his house to discuss the situation, along with allegedly offering her an undisclosed sum of money to keep their relationship quiet. Before Brayla arrived to his house in Sherwood, Trevone contacted the 19-year-old woman with whom he'd been involved and explained exactly what was happening and how he was considering taking his own life out of embarrassment of being exposed. But he quickly retracted that statement, going on to claim that he was going to kill Brayla instead to avoid details of his personal life being leaked. He genuinely feared that people would think he was gay. I understand that people, and especially teenagers, can get so caught up in how other people perceive them. Trust me, I do too sometimes. And I also understand that internalized homophobia, transphobia, etc. can be extremely difficult to overcome, but that is absolutely no excuse for taking out your issues on other people. Trevone never intended to overcome this hatred that he felt inside, and instead projected that onto Brayla. To go as far as wanting to kill someone in order to hide your involvement with them is... wow. Unfortunately, the 19-year-old woman did not take these threats against Brayla's life seriously and thought that Trevone was just being dramatic out of fear. She attempted to calm him down and thought that was the end of it. Not long after this phone call, Brayla arrived at Trevone's house, which was confirmed by a friend who was speaking on the phone with her as she waited for Trevone to answer the door. 5 hours after initially meeting with Trevone, Brayla texted the same friend saying, "I'm not up for this," which I'm assuming indicates that they had spent the last several hours arguing, and sadly, that would be one of the last times that anyone ever heard from Brayla. The next morning, on June 25th, a pedestrian called police to report seeing a dead body lying inside a black Saturn Vue parked near a residential walking trail in northeastern Sherwood. Upon police arrival, they found 17-year-old Brayla Stone lying upside down on the front passenger floorboard with her legs up against the seat, and she had suffered a fatal bullet wound to the head. The driver's side window had been broken out, and the interior of the car was permeated with the smell of bleach, despite the upholstery being completely covered in blood splatter. News of Brayla's horrific murder circulated the media, but something that I found a little untoward was that her family specifically requested that all articles and news segments covering Brayla's story refer to her using only he/him pronouns and the name that she was given at birth, despite the preferences she had made obvious for years at that point. I understand that it can be a difficult change for loved ones to adapt when they've known somebody for one way almost their entire life and then that suddenly changes, but even in her obituary, an old pre-transition photo of Brayla was used. In no way do I intend to disrespect Brayla's family, but it just seems like instead of using a more recent and accurate depiction of her, their negative feelings towards her identity were prioritized rather than honoring who she truly was. In the aftermath of Brayla's untimely death, before any arrest had been made, an unidentified Instagram user by the name of @TappinSeason commented on a memorial post of Brayla, claiming that they killed her for $5,000 before posting a photo of $100 bills to their story as proof. This account gained negative attention over the next 24 hours, and eventually the user posted once again to their story, admitting that they were actually just a 15-year-old kid who made everything up for clout. I know this kid was just acting out for attention, but imagine being one of Brayla's friends or family members and seeing this comment from a stranger bragging that they took out a hit on your loved one. Not only is that just blatantly disgusting, but whether it was true or not, the police hadn't made an arrest at that point. People were reading the comments and genuinely wondering if there was a psychopath running around Sherwood killing people and bragging about it. This kid didn't get into any trouble for these claims as far as I know, but I hope they look back on the situation when they're older and realize how wrong they were for doing this, and I hope they cringe into oblivion. It's unclear exactly why, but it took police a week to arrest Trevone despite being their main person of interest almost immediately. Not only had Brayla's friend went straight to police to say that Brayla had been with Trevone the evening of her death, but the location where Brayla's body was found was actually a spot that Trevone frequented often for intimate encounters due to the proximity to his home in Sherwood. Trevone's manager at Arby's also came forward pretty quickly to tell police that he had contacted her after missing work the day of Brayla's death, saying, "I effed up. I effed up big time. I messed up and I won't be back for a very long time, if ever. The manager kept asking Trevone what he was talking about, but Trevone just kept telling her that she'll find out from the news. As soon as the manager heard about Brayla's body being discovered, she relayed this information to authorities. Finally, Trevone was detained on August 3rd. I can only assume that he went into hiding and was evading police for the week that he remained free after the murder. Although he was initially charged with capital murder, which is punishable by death in the state of Arkansas, Trevone took a plea deal. A year after his arrest, Trevone pled guilty to first-degree murder in the slang of Brayla Stone and was sentenced to 50 years in prison by the Pulaski County Circuit Judge. He is required to serve at least 35 years before he's eligible for parole, meaning that he will be at least 53 years old if granted early release in 2056. So many true crime cases stem from somebody doing something that they want no one to find out about, and then when their secrecy is threatened, they're willing to kill over it. I don't even know if these people genuinely think that they're gonna get away with it, or if they're in just such a frenzy to save their reputation that they act first and then think later. Obviously, Trevone knew that he was going to get caught just as quickly as he decided to take Brayla's life, since he haphazardly tried to clean up the crime scene and then admitted to messing up to his manager, but like, you would really rather be known as a murderer and throw your entire life away rather than have people think that you're gay for being involved with a transgender woman. Please make it make sense. In the end, the relationship was exposed regardless, and now he looks even more ridiculous. It seems like he was going down a dark path, possibly towards incarceration anyways, and to think that he can potentially be paroled early with a couple decades of freedom is devastating when you think of how Brayla only had 17 years on this earth. She had dreams and goals, and she brought so much joy to those around her. She was an advocate for self-love, and she was somebody that her friends could rely on. Brayla Stone was one of 44 trans Americans who died by violence in 2020, and that doesn't even account for the victims who are misgendered in police reports or deaths that go unreported entirely. In my research of this case, I found so many stories of people who were just like Brayla, trying to be themselves unapologetically before crossing paths with somebody who couldn't stand to just live and let live. Literally. It's so heartbreaking, especially because these cases pretty much never make it to mainstream news. With that, we've just about reached the end of today's video. If you made it this far, I want to thank you so much for listening to Brayla's story. I know this video was significantly shorter than some of the other cases that I cover, but I still think it's important to spread awareness about lesser known cases because the victims still deserve to have their voices heard. If you have any recommendations for topics you'd like me to cover in the future, go ahead and leave those down below in the comments and I will get to them as soon as I can. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day and I'll see you next time. Bye!